Hey everyone, how's everybody doing? Hi Vicky. I'm excited that you can catch this live too from snowy Littleton, Colorado. Well, better in Colorado than here. Hi Deidre. Pamela from Virginia. Oh, I'm so glad. Good. I'm glad you set your calendar for this. Hi Diana. Uta. I'm gonna get rid of this little thing. Naples. Hi Millie. Good to see everybody. I'll give everybody a few minutes to kind of come in, but I got together with a bunch of friends last night for dinner. We always do that in early December to just have a little holiday cheer, and we don't see each other very often, and so it's always nice that we can get together and go out for dinner and just have a good time. Hi, Linda. From New Mexico. Great. Hi, Miriam from Vancouver Island, Canada. Hi, Sally from Minnesota. Good to see everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Has everybody got their Christmas shopping done? Mine isn't. Hi, Liz from Oregon. Good to have everybody here. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm going to give everybody just a few minutes. Hi, Jolene. Oh, good. You got in. Good. I'm glad. Hi, Faye. It's great to have everybody here. Hi, Nancy. Hi, Gail. Hi, Helen. Yeah, it's great. If you're in live, say hello so I'll know where you are. Well, I've been having fun. I just got back. Hi, Sandra. Sandra, you had asked, you had purchased some of the online classes when they were on sale last week. And unfortunately, they automatically go to the email from which they were purchased. So I wasn't able to change that around for you. Hi, Deirdre. So I apologize for that, but I saw it after the fact, but I still don't think there was anything I could do about that anyway. So anyhow, I apologize. But anyway, speaking of that, if people have any Bernina machines on their wish list and they have not purchased them or put down any money with a dealer yet, be sure to contact me and I will be delighted to send you an ambassador appreciation coupon. It's that $100 rebate. This is for U.S. customers only because it's a thank you from Bernina of America. So it's only eligible to U.S. residents. So, but if you haven't purchased anything yet, as I said, Bernina machines or software, any purchase that's valued at $1,000 and up, I'll be glad to send that. So all you have to do is shoot me an email, gail@gailpatrice.com. Let me just put that up on the screen too, just so you can see it. Oh, that's not my email. It's gail@gailpatrice.com. For the email, and I will get one of those rebate coupons right out to you, but it has to be done prior to making the purchase or exchanging money. Hi from Georgia, Suzanne, nice to have you here. Hi, Francesca from Alabama. Vicky, oh, you got the rebate coupon, great. Yeah, these are fantastic. Who doesn't need another $100 to save? So it's a great way to get one more discount on whatever you're purchasing. So, but I was out in Phoenix for a 2.5-day event. Hi, Celeste. And I will tell you, every time I talk to my husband on the phone, I said, I could get used to this weather in the winter for 6 or 8 weeks. I don't think I would live there year round simply because I would miss my seasons in New England. But I'll tell you, it was so beautiful. The weather was just great. It was a really fun event. We had a lot of good times, and we did my tabletopper pattern that you can see a couple of them hanging up in back of me, probably over here better. So, and you can see my little Christmas balls. I decided to be very festive today with my holiday cheer and putting things around. But it's about 12:05 here. So why don't we get going? So today, I think you saw in the little promo that we did yesterday, we saw the Christmas tree. And here it is. Let me just show you. I'm looking for a nice little angel for the top, but in the meantime, the star is filling in. But this is just a styrofoam cone, and I used the wide 7/8 inch wide finished with belt loop folder with 3 12-weight threads in the chain looper for a triple cover stitch. Hi, Justine. Oh, yeah, you got the cover hem insert spare. Yeah, that is fantastic. I love that, having that. What Justine is talking about in that comment is having an extra cover hem table that you can use the attachment holder. Leave that on, and then I just have my regular one if I'm not using the belt loop folder or double fold binder or one of those things that needs to be attached to it. I have it spare, but it's a time saver. It's just very convenient. So anyway, getting back to this. So I used the wide the wide belt loop folder for this project, and that's what I'm going to be using today. However, if you wanted to use the narrow one that finishes at about, maybe 3/8 of an inch or so, or the medium one that finishes at 5/8 of an inch, you definitely could. But the reason I decided on using the wide one is because it covers more real estate going around the cone faster. So I decided that would be the one I would use, and that's what I'm going to use today. So also, before we start that too, I just wanted to say I have been running sales. The first week was I ran 15% off on Thread Fusions and the Artist Palette Packs of Wonderfill Spaghetti Thread and the locking forks. Last week we had the pre-recorded classes on sale. This week, all of the digital and print patterns are on sale for 15% off. And stay tuned, because there may be a very fun surprise for all of you next week. So I'm not going to say anything yet, but there may be another fun surprise coming. So anyway, all right. So I'm going to move these little announcements around that I have. My website is gailpatrice.com. That's what you saw on the paper before. And that's where you can find the patterns and notions and all of that stuff. They're pre-recorded classes. So that's that. So I am going to move this. And after I did all of the belt loop folder winding around on this, you can see I added in beads, and believe it or not, I went to Michael's and got those little tiny lights. Let me turn this on and see if you can kind of see it. Yeah, there you go. They're those tiny lights, and this is a 15-inch cone, and it took, I think it was a 19.5-foot string of lights to go around. And so I added those on, and it's very effective. It's very pretty in person. So I'm going to move this out of the way and show you the one we're going to be doing today. And the cone that I'm using today is about 9 inches tall. So it's a little bit shorter, and I've already started the process because I didn't think you needed to watch me winding the belt loop folder around all 9 inches. So hang on a second. Let me get this out of the way. Okay, so first of all, let me show you what I'm doing. I'm going to show you what this belt loop folder looks like. I am using 3 cones of the Wonderful Glamour thread, and those 3 are all metallic and rayon threads. They're 12 weight. Now, and there was one difference that I made that I haven't made before in my tension for the chain looper, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But I'm going to show you what this looks like up close. Here it is. I just cut off a short piece to show you. It's really, really pretty. Here's the needle side of it. You can see the 3 lines of the green thread from the needles. And this is a gold, silver, and kind of the same color green, not quite a dark green, but kind of a medium green, all metallic threads in the chain looper together. And I used a thread cradle to pull them through. And I think it's just a really pretty combination for that. And for my stitch length, I'm going to go over to the screen so I can show these to you. Hi, June. Hi, Linda. Hi, Maureen. Thanks for joining today. I'm going to go over to the screen. I think this is my correct one. Yep. Okay. So I am on a 4-thread cover stitch, stitch number 21. I'm working on the Bernina L890 combo overlock cover stitch machine. Now, the 4-thread cover stitch is also known as a triple cover stitch because you can see there are 3 needles in. You can see the lines of stitching. This is the needle side of it. I hate to say the right and the wrong side because really I'm using this side as my right side. And so I think many manufacturers call this a triple cover stitch. Bernina labels it a 4-thread cover stitch. They are the exact same thing. There is absolutely no difference except for the way they are labeled. Now, across the top, the yellow, green, and blue blocks that you see are the needle tensions, and those are on the default setting. But because these were 3 metallic 12-weight threads, I found that dropping the tension on my chain looper threads right here, whoops, right up here, I dropped it all the way down to 1. I found I got the best looking stitch with that. And in other videos, when I've used multiple 12-weight threads in the chain looper, or even regular 8-weight threads, all of them non-metallic, I leave all of my tensions in cover stitch mode on the default setting. But I think it's because they have that metallic filament in them that it kind of changes the way they feed through the machine. And I found that when I left them on the default setting, every once in a while, the left needle wouldn't quite catch the all 3 of the threads. It might catch 2 of them without 1 of them. So I think by relaxing the tension a little bit, by dropping that setting down to 1, that worked very well. Also on the screen, you'll see I have my stitch length on 3.9, which sounds long, but when you think about it, 3 12-weight threads make a very dense stitch, and that's why I need that length. Otherwise, I would get a lot of stitch stacking and jumbling up on each other, and I may even get a thread nest, which would be really annoying. And I'd have to, get the jaws of life out and get that pulled out of the machine, which we don't want to do. So I thought before we actually went to the styrofoam cone and did the winding around on this, and I'll give you a few tips on that, I thought I would give you a quick tutorial on the belt loop folder. Now, again, let me go back to me for a second. I am using the wide one. This is the 2040. That's the way it's listed. And that finishes the width up at about 7/8 of an inch, somewhere in there. And this is quilting weight cotton. And I can't stress that enough, that you want to be accurate when you cut your strip to go into the belt loop folder. And because this is a quilting weight cotton, I cut it just a smidge wider than what they had suggested. I think they usually say about 1 5/8 for the width to cut. I cut this exactly 1 3/4 inches, but you need to experiment with that. I'm not using any interfacing or stabilizer, nothing like that on the inside. It's strictly the quilting weight cotton. And also, because I have to wind it around a cone, you want to cut your strips on the bias. That is important, because the first time I played around with this, I wasn't really thinking about that too much, and I was just testing out the idea to see whether I even liked it. And I cut the strips on the straighter grain or cross grain, and they don't lay flat. But when you do it on the bias, they lay flat beautifully. So just remember that as well. So I'm going to go and show you how to get into this. Hi, Carolyn. Good to see you. Oh, no apologies, please. We're just chit-chatting for the first few minutes. And this is recorded to my YouTube channel. So if you have friends who wanted to see it, who are at work or, running errands, I can't imagine, Christmas shopping, who does that on December 10th? They can catch the recording, or if you want to rewatch it for a little refresher on how to do this, it'll be on my YouTube channel. But anyway, so this is cut exactly 1 3/4 inches wide, quilting weight cotton, and cut on the bias grain line. That is really important. So let's go over and take a look at how to set this up in the belt loop folder. Okay, so I have my machine all threaded up. All of my settings are done. I have my belt loop folder pivoted out to make it easy to get my fabric in, and I'm putting it in the folder right side up. So I'm bringing that in, and I like to cut a little point or an arrow at the beginning. It makes it much easier to feed it through, and you can pull it through, and having this pivot makes it very easy to get this through. And I'm going to pull it forward. Now, I have already got my belt loop folder positioned so that my stitching is centered, but that is something you would want to work out. Don't waste your decorative thread getting it centered when you go to do your practice strip. Cut a practice strip of the same weight fabric. If you have lots of extra, you can use the same fabric. But do your practicing on that with just regular old serger cone thread in the looper, or the chain looper, because you don't want to waste your decorative threads. I am very thrifty when it comes to that, and they are more expensive than regular thread. Also, I'll tell you something, you also don't want to run out of it. I know I made that mistake one time, or a couple of times, and that was the last time I did that, where everything I was practicing, getting everything centered and just right, and checking my stitch length and all of that test stuff, I was doing it with my decorative threads. Well, by the time I had everything perfect, guess what? I didn't have quite enough of one of the color threads, which was very annoying. So I always say, do all your practicing with just serger cone thread. It's inexpensive, no big deal. When you get your stitching centered, then put your good decorative thread in. So let's go back to the belt loop, and I'm pulling it forward. Now I've got my presser foot up, I've got my clear foot on. You could also use your C13, the cover chain stitch foot, the little metal one that's narrow. Let me grab that so I can show you. I don't want to knock my cameras around here. Here is your narrow cover chain stitch foot. You could also use that, but when I do videos, I really like to use the clear foot simply because it gives you the best vision on that. Hi, Barbara from Yakima. Thanks for joining. Okay, so we have what I call these little guardrails right here, and I like to keep the fabric between them. And because this is a tiny bit wider than what the recommended width is, you can see it kind of squishes in. But that way I know that the edges underneath are going to meet and just touch each other, and I won't have any gap that you can see underneath the stitching. So if you go to my belt loop folder video that was just posted, I believe last week, you can see how it works. But basically your fabric goes in, it feeds in flat, but as it comes out of the mouth of the folder right near the toe of the foot, what happens is that fabric folds under and those raw edges meet each other right in the middle, and your stitching covers it. And I like to use either a wide cover stitch or a triple cover stitch for the belt loop folder, simply because it gives me a little bit more wiggle room, that if my stitching wasn't quite perfectly centered, I know it's still going to catch both edges, and one of them won't be loose and laying flat, which I would have to go back and redo that. So the wide cover stitch or triple cover stitch is my go-to stitch for that. Can you use the narrow cover stitch? Yes, you can. But remember, your needle and your stitch is narrower. Your needles are closer together, and that makes a narrower stitch. So you don't really have any wiggle room on making sure that you're perfectly centered on that. But that's up to you. If you feel confident and you've tested it and you like using the narrow cover stitch, go for it. There's nothing wrong with it. It'll work fine. But again, just you don't have quite as much wiggle room on that. So let's go back here. Okay, so I've got this pulled forward, and I always cut plenty of extra length. Sometimes when you're using multiple threads in the chain looper, maybe the first ½ inch or 1 inch of the stitching looks not quite as good as when it gets going, because I think it just takes a while for those threads to kind of calm down as they're feeding through the machine. There's nothing wrong with the machine, nothing wrong that you're doing. It's just the nature of the beast when you've got that. And because we are in cover stitch mode, I've pulled the fabric under my needles to start so that I don't get a thread nest. And while I'm thinking about that too, I'm going to just go back to me for a second. I just want to mention that even if you are using a single 8-weight thread, whether you're in overlock mode or cover chain stitch mode, or you're using multiple threads on my thread fusion stand, don't chain off, because it's a lot of thread to try to chain off, and oftentimes you will get a nest of threads, and then you have to really pull and get it out of the machine. Just use your locking fork, pull them forward, lock the stitch, and then you can pull the fabric out and you'll be perfectly fine. So let's go back and take a quick look at how this looks. Okay. So I've got kind of a long strip. I think I'll start a little further in just so that I won't be boring you. All right. I'm putting my presser foot down. The 3 needles are set to go. And let's watch this. And I am trying to keep my fabric right between those guardrails. And you see it kind of poofs up in the middle a little bit, but it feeds through perfectly. And you'll see what I mean. And I always do try to start well, I start in the fabric, but I like to stitch at a kind of a moderate speed. I don't like to gun it, especially with multiple threads in the chain looper. I like to go at a moderate speed. Okay, I think that's good. This is just to show you. Now I will use, let me get my, I gotta get my scissors. I will use my locking fork, pull my threads forward, and I'm gonna snip those, pull the fabric out at about 10 o'clock, where the 10 is on the clock, cut my chain looper thread, or cut my chain looper threads, I should say. And now, here we are. You can see it's beautiful. Now, the next thing that I would do is I would go to the iron and give this a good press. And that's what I did on this little sample one. Let me put that under the camera again for you. I would give it a good press. And because it is on the bias grain line, I would give it a little bit of a stretch as I press it with steam too. So let me just show you that when it's all pressed up. It's really, really pretty. So, and let me see if I think I can bring that camera in just a little bit closer so you can see all the colors. Whoops, overdid it. There we go. So you can see the gold, the silver, and then you can see the green thread, and there's a green metallic in there as well. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start wrapping that around the cone. So let me adjust this camera and bring it up just a little bit. I think this should be probably pretty good. I may have to adjust it a little bit more. And let me rotate the, yep, there we go. Okay, so I have already got this one started. Let me show this on my face camera too. I think that'll work. Here it is. This one is just 9 inches long. And I'll start at the bottom. What I did was, because it's a white cone, I didn't want any white peeking out at the bottom. So I just cut a circle of the same fabric. I cut it about with 1 inch around the diameter of the circle at the bottom. And I made little snips as I went along, and I just pinned it to the cone underneath. And that's just to hide the bottom of that, because the white would look really yucky. And I did the same thing on the top of the cone as well. You can see the little pins. Those will be hidden as I wind this around it. So that'll be good. So let me just go back to the other camera that you don't see anything on right now. Okay, so I have got, for some reason this keeps flipping around. Okay, good. All right, so you can see the bottom of this. I'm gonna back this out just a smidge. I apologize. Okay, that's good. That is actually good. Okay, so you can see I've already started this. So what I do is I just kind of give the strip a little bit of a snug tug, and I align it so that it's about the edge of the binding strip, the looper strip, is about 1/8 of an inch from the previous line of stitching. But again, if you want to be right next to it, it's your choice. But I like to cover a little more area as I go along. So I'm going to put this on. I'm going to wind it around and keep winding. And I don't cut one long strip. I do multiple strips, But if you want to just join your strips first, run them through the belt loop folder, that's entirely up to you. But I just find the shorter strips are a little bit easier to manage, and I just use good old pins, the old-fashioned common pins, to fasten them to the cone. So I'm going to keep winding. And it's kind of pretty to see it sort of come together. And I'll show you how I end each one. Now, you could glue these also and probably put a pin in temporarily while the glue is setting up on this. That is entirely your choice as well. So I'm going to pin this because we're not going to get all the way to the top on this. And what I do on this, I don't fold under that raw edge because I'm going to cover it with the next one that I do. But I'm just going to pop a couple. Here are the pins that I use, the good old common pins. And I'll tell you the story. I have this box. Let me just show you. This box had, I'm not even sure. It has to have been thousands of pins in it. And years ago, I was a dental hygienist. And one of my patients' husbands at that time, now this is a million years ago, he happened to be the president of the Prim Dritz company. And his wife was a really nice patient. He was very nice as well. But one time we started talking, and I happened to mention that I really like to sew. And so the next time she came in with this box of pins, snaps, hooks and eyes, all sorts of the things that Prim Dritz makes. And she gave me tons of stuff. And this is back before I knew really anything technical about sewing. At that point, I was all self-taught. But I was so excited to get all this stuff. And this box of pins sat for years and years and years, totally unused. And then when I started doing some of the Christmas ornaments, like the ones, just the balls that you see in back of me and things, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go find that thing and use it, and then I'll be all set to go. So I did. I opened it up and I was ready to roll. So, all right, now on the one that I just did, let me just cut off the ends that I didn't finish. And I don't think it's going to really matter that I didn't press this. I'll just give it a nice tug as I go along and flatten it out. Throw these pieces away. Actually, nope, I think we're good. Okay. So what I'm going to do, as I say, I would typically have pressed this, but it'll flatten right out very nicely. So let's go back to the cone again. All right, so you see the raw edge of this. Now, what I like to do, here's the one that I just ran off. What I do is I lay it right sides together. Get this out of the way. I put it right sides together with this, and I try to make sure that my stitching lines are aligned perfectly with each other so that you don't see it too much, just like this. And I'm going to just grab these pins that I stuck in and put them right on top, and I want to make sure my edges are even too. Let me see if I can bring this down a little closer for you. I think, let me put the light on too. I think that'll be good. And raise the, whoops, I'm going the wrong way. I think that'll be better. And let me put on the light. There we go. Okay. So we can see. All right, so I'm going to take these pins out from the other one. Getting a very good view of the back of my hands. So what I'm doing is I am going to just offset those raw edges a little bit from each other. And I can see that my stitching lines look pretty even with each other. Now, and I suggest having either a thimble or something else that you can use so that your fingertips aren't super sore. Pop that in. Bring this one in on top. Push those pins all the way in so they're flat. And then you're going to bring this over and you've got a nice finished edge. Now, a lot of times the stitch that's on the edge can kind of pop out a little bit. So if you're using a metallic thread, or even if you aren't, you can push that down and hide it. Just like that. Let's see if I can get it even a little bit closer. There we go. I think that's even better. But you can see my stitching lines are aligned, and I'm just going to continue the exact same technique, coming around. I'm going to bring it in a little bit closer. Come around. So basically, all you're doing is winding this on. Let me get this back in the camera. I have to make sure, I have to pay attention to that and this because I want to make sure I'm not going out of the camera range. Just like this. And I'm pulling this pretty snug against the cone just so that it doesn't gap or look loose. Can you see how it pulls a little and snugs up? And that's because it's cut on the bias. And that's what we want. So now I am just about at the top, not quite. And I'm going to repeat the process. And these things go pretty quickly, believe it or not, for this part of it. And if you want to stop at this point and not do any more decorating on it, you've still got a very beautiful little Christmas tree. But then on mine, I added some beads. But if you want to add crystals or buttons or whatever you want to do, or maybe just some lights, you can do that. I will say, though, I would bet if you went looking at a Michaels now for those lights, I think you might be out of luck because I bought mine a couple of weeks ago, and I think there was only maybe one other string of them left, or a couple of boxes, one or the other. Okay, so now we still have a gap right here. And I'm going to use that little short piece that I showed you and finish it up. So it is the exact same technique. I'm going to just butt this up. I'll check to make sure my stitching looks aligned with each other before I keep winding. Get my hands out of the way so you can actually see what I did. So there's that. Let me just make sure. I think our stitching looks good. So I am going to push these pins in, get them right on the edge, get those nice and flat so they don't pop out. Whoops, I missed that one altogether. Hang on. Well, I kind of hate to ruin my nails. I'll just take another pin. Pop it in right here. That other one will be covered. I see a little thread. I can cut that afterwards, so that's no big deal. And I'm just going to finish it. And this is covering the top of it because there's really no good way to wind this across the top that I know of. If somebody else knows of a good way to do it, then definitely chime in. But that way we don't have any yucky styrofoam showing. So I'm going to finish this. And then what I do, and I want to flatten this stitching out on this previous line. I'm just going to put that in. And you can see with the metallic threads that pinhead basically visually disappears. All right, so now we're at the top, and I'm just going to pull this super tight, and I think what I'll do, I'll probably cut a little bit of this off. I think it's probably, hang on a second, I think I want to just come down a little lower to get this looking, get this looking nice. And then what I would do with this is I will, let me adjust this up a little bit to hide the tip of that. I'm going to cut off a little bit of this excess length on this. I don't want to cut off so much so that I cut it too short. And I'm going to fold that under and just pin it in, and it'll look perfectly fine when it's all decorated. Oops, and you can see the ends of the threads popping out. So we'll tuck those in with the pin. Get that in. And one more. And if you see the end of that tail sticking out, just take something that will tuck in that raw edge so you can't see it, just so it looks really nice and finished. I think the green against the green, you're missing it, but I can see the raw edge. Pin it in, and you're all covered. I think I'll put one more in the stitching line, the way I did with the other ones. Let me just orient this so you can see it a little better. There. Let me go back to me and I'll show you what the whole thing looks like. See? It's all covered up. Now, I will do the beads. Again, if you have crystals, beads, buttons, if you have little fun things, even charms, if you wanted to hang those on it, you could certainly do that. Another thing that I haven't explored yet is using serger chains and maybe doing some beads on the chains and hanging them on. I haven't decided. I'm kind of wavering on that idea though, because sometimes I think, you know, you get into a point where you've got too much stuff going on and it sort of kills the whole look of it. But you can see as you go around, it has a really nice look. And I was thinking right before I came on camera that I should have measured exactly how much of the binding it took to do that. But I would say it took, because I just cut, this is fabric that I had in my stash and I just cut it on the bias. I had to cut at least 5 strips of it, and I would say they were different lengths certainly, but I would say the longest one was probably, I would say maximum 24 inches. I don't think it really was 24, maybe more like 20. But it does take a few strips to do. But on the taller cone that I did, the first one that I did, that took way more because that one is 15 inches high. And as I said with the string of lights, that took 19 and a half feet of lights, which you wouldn't think something that tall would take, but it does because it eats it up as it goes around. But I think this is just such a cute look. And you don't have to use metallic threads if you don't have them. If you have any other decorative threads that you like, definitely try those out. And but you may need to experiment with your stitch length, because I like the stitch to really cover those raw edges. Remember, we're looking at the underside of the belt loop folder fabric strip. And so those raw edges are under the stitching, and you don't want to see those peeking through. So if you're using a lighter weight thread, my stitch length, as I said before, was 3.9. That's with 3 12-weight threads. If you're using something much lighter than that, or only a single thread, play with your stitch length to get a nice one so that you don't see the edges of that fabric strip underneath. Are there any questions at all? Anyone have anything they want to ask me about with that? The second part of this that I did, after I got all of the strips on, that was when I went to attaching the beads. I did some crystals on it. The crystals I glued on. I just used gem tack glue, which I have talked about before, and put those on. The darker green one, the original one, was packed when I went to Arizona because I wanted to bring that out. And I had my little curly cues at the top of it that looked very, very cute. And those, let me grab it again. These little curly cues did not travel well in the suitcase. Those were like wire edge ribbon that I used 2 metallic threads on, and my cording foot. This, I think that is maybe C17. I used the cording foot to run that through, and that was in overlock mode. And then I wound these around a pencil just to make them curly cues. But as I said, they didn't travel real well, so I had to take them off and fix them. Deirdre, you said you have a question. Fire away. What can I answer for you? If you don't have the belt loop folder, what would be the best foot to try? Maybe the adjustable tape guide. Well, you could. The adjustable tape guide will feed the fabric through flat. It will not fold it under. What I would say would be your better solution would be if you have one of those Clover bias tape makers, you could run your fabric through those, and you can go to Clover bias tape maker. You can Google that and it will show those, and those come in all different widths. You could create your bias tape with that, and then you could run it through your machine with the cover stitch after the fact, with those raw edges, the folded edges, face down, so that chain stitch shows on that side. And you could do that. The adjustable tape guide, that's a good thought, but again, it will not fold the fabric. I would use something like the Clover bias tape maker. Select the width that you want, create that. You're going to press it as it goes through the tape maker. Then you would do your stitching. That would be my little workaround if you're waiting to get that. Barbara Clark says, oh, have I thought of using fringe on the tree? That is a very cute idea. No, I didn't. So thank you very much for that. I could do that. Maybe on a future one. When I ordered these 9-inch cones, I ordered them right before I had to leave for Arizona. And when I got back, they were here. So I have 3 more of those. Maybe I could try that out and see how that would work. That would be very cute, Barbara. Thank you for the idea. Celeste is asking, do I recommend the largest belt loop holder if I can only buy one? That is a tough question. It just depends on what you want to do it for. As I said, the 3 sizes finished are about 3/8, and actually I have a snowflake that I made with the smallest one. That was with the narrowest belt loop folder. The finished sizes are 3/8 for the smallest one, 5/8 inch wide for the medium one, and the one you saw me using today, 7/8 of an inch wide finished. I think I personally, if I was only going to buy one right now, I think I would go for the medium one, maybe the 5/8, because again, it's an in-between size. But I will say that for people who have the Bernina machines, I believe all of the feet and attachments are on sale right now. And I think, don't quote me, but I think they're about 25% off, which is a considerable savings. Deirdre says you have those. How did I attach the string of lights? Pat is asking. Good question. What I did with those, and you know, those lights are really small and the wire is very delicate, so you do have to kind of handle it gingerly. What I did, it's actually a double wire, and I don't know if you can see that on, let me see if I can move the camera in super close so that you can see that. It's a double wire, and what I did was, I just used those common pins. I did not put the pins through the wires, but I laid the wire down, and then I had the head of the pin just overlap that wire enough so that it would hold it in place. So that's what I did with that. And I tried to be neat with it. It took me, believe it or not, I think that was the longest part of this whole thing, was putting the lights on, because I wanted to be as neat as I could be with it, and delicate as well. Let me go back to that camera and see if I can show you that. You don't see anything there right now. Hang on a second. I'm moving stuff out of the way so we can get in close. That's actually a little too close. Hang on. And let me focus that a little bit better. Yeah, you can see the double strand of wires, and just see, where did I just see it? The head of a pin was right over here, I believe. So it's kind of being tacked in gently with the head of the pin. The pin is not through the wires or anything like that. I don't want to break, because you know yourself from Christmas tree lights, you break the wire, you're all done. But the heads of the pin are kind of holding it in place. Let me move this down. You can see this one as well. Let me move. I think I'm a little too close. There we go. You can see that. But that's what I used for securing the wires on the lights. That's a great question. What else do we have? Oh, you even make Serger crochet. Are you talking about like kind of like that Serger lace type of thing, Leah? And are you talking about winding that around the tree? That's kind of a cool idea too. Also, if you wanted to do something with fabric, if you wanted to do something with gathered strips that are ruffled, that would be kind of cute too. There are a ton of things that you can do with this project. I've been thinking about some other ideas, but I am really digging on that fringe idea. So I'm going to give that some consideration and think about that, because the fringe, I do have it for anyone who's not familiar with um, what we're talking about with the fringe. I do have a tip clip on how to make fringe, and that is in overlock mode using what they call a 2-thread wrap stitch, wrap overlock stitch. So Barbara is, oh yes, and Leah is saying yes, and to wrap the serger crochet around it. All of those things, again, that would give it kind of that lacy, sort of branchy look, which would be super pretty. Barbara says you could glue a bead on the pin before putting it on the tree. Yes, and in fact, on this one, if you could see it up close, these gold beads, this is yet another thing that I have a fairly good sized stash of beads at home that I buy at Michael's or Joann's or one of those places. And I was picking up another color bead, and then I thought, oh, I think I have gold metallic beads at home. I don't think I'll buy those. Well, guess what? I got home. I didn't. So I went back and got those. But what I found was I used those pins, the straight pins, to put the bead on. But then the hole was just big enough that if I bumped one of the beads, it would come off because the head of the pin would go through it. So what I did to secure it was I took my favorite crazy glue or super glue, the one that dries clear, and I went around and did a dot on each one. It only took a couple of minutes. It sounds ridiculous, but I put that on, and that way they're not going anywhere ever again. They'll stay put for the duration. Maureen is saying 25% off all Bernina and Burnett feet and accessories in the U.S. and Canada. Thank you, Maureen. Yes, I was pretty sure that was right. Also, if you are thinking about a machine, and there's certainly no pressure, everybody knows their own budget. But when I was at 35th Avenue this past weekend, that's the name of the 35th Avenue Sew and Vac and Fabric World in Phoenix, they were offering very good financing deals on machines. I think they had 0% for 12 months and 1.9 for 48 months, something like that. Now that probably varies between dealers. I don't know if all dealers are going to do that. But if you are thinking about a new machine and you thought, I don't know if I could put that much on my credit card right now, or if I want to put that much on my credit card, ask them about what they're offering for financing deals, because some of them are pretty darn attractive. But again, that's up to you, and there's certainly no pressure from me. I always say it in my classes, and I'll say it again. I'm a Bernina ambassador. I do not work for them, and I do not receive any commission at all on sales of anything. So, but I am delighted to hand out the rebate coupons. I'm a bargain girl, if ever there was one. I love a sale, and if I can save money on something, I'm right there for it. So anyway, but were there any more questions about, oh, Leah says like a tinsel. Oh, the serger crochet. So you wouldn't do the whole thing with serger crochet. You would just kind of do it here and there like tinsel, laying it down. And that's such a funny thing, because tinsel, everybody used to use tinsel years and years ago on their Christmas trees, and now you don't see it so much anymore. But then I've started noticing this year, seeing different things on Instagram and Pinterest, where you're starting to see a little bit more of that, or something that sort of takes the place of tinsel coming back into vogue again. It's funny how things like that come and go in and out of style. But anyway, so that is my holiday project for this year. And when I get this one all dolled up with the beads and everything else, I will post a photo of it. But I thought this color was pretty, and if you looked really closely at it, it kind of looks like little boughs and little bits of branches of different bushes that you would typically use for Christmas trees, or trees, not bushes, I guess. So I will post a photo of that when I get it all dolled up with my beads and whatever else I decide to use on it. And I will post a photo, and I'm on the hunt for just the right size angels for the top of them. So I will keep you posted on that. But if anyone has any, oh, Shelly says tinsel is not good with pets, but it is pretty. Yeah. Oh, Celeste is asking, okay, we'll keep going here for a second. Which knit fold binder size do I recommend for attaching ribbing or binding to a t-shirt? Okay, the 36 millimeter double fold binder is the one that mimics the look of ready to wear. It's kind of the standard size, so the 36 millimeter double fold binder would be the one I would recommend. So, and you'll see when you create that. I do have a tip clip on that too, so you can scroll through my YouTube channel and take a look at that and see. And I was tidying up my table a few days ago, wouldn't you know, and I had a sample of that out, but it's put away right now. I'd have to go searching around for it. But, you know, I can shoot you a picture of that, Celeste, but it's the 36 millimeter. And you'll see it looks exactly like ready to wear. It's the exact same width that they use on that, or pretty darn close to it. So, any other questions or comments? We'll be meeting again the second Tuesday in January. So, in the meantime, and Hanukkah falls, the first night falls on Christmas Eve. So, I wish all of you a Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah if you celebrate either one. I hope you all have a wonderful, creative 2025. I thank you so very much for tuning in and patronizing me, and I will look forward to classes online, and I've got a bunch of different in-person events that I'll be doing also, and so I'm looking forward to seeing people in person as well. But if you're not in any of the areas, I'll look forward to seeing you online. So have a wonderful holiday. Celeste is saying thank you so much. Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's great to hear. And if you have any questions at all, you can always email me. Again, gail@gailpatrice.com is my email address. And or you can ask questions right underneath the tip clip that you're watching too. I do not go back. Don't post a question in the chat after we finish today, simply because I don't go back to look at those questions. I do receive the ones that are from the tip clip questions. So, but I don't go back to the live chat to see if anyone asked a question afterwards. So I'm not ignoring you. It's just, well, I guess technically I am, because I'm not looking at them. But I'll be happy to answer your questions if you shoot me an email for that. But in the meantime, I hope you have wonderful, safe, happy holidays, safe travels if you're traveling to friends and family. Stay safe. Enjoy all of the wonderful food and fun. My favorite part of the holidays, basically, is decorating and having my family for Christmas Eve. Christmas Day for us is relatively quiet because we have about 35 people on Christmas Eve. So by Christmas Day, it's just fairly quiet with my sister, her husband, one of my brothers, and possibly a couple of other people. But those are my plans. So anyway, thank you again. Happy 2025, and I will see you the second Tuesday in January. So thanks very much, and I will see you all soon. You'll see me online too. You'll see some things that I'll post in the meantime before January, certainly. So be looking. Thanks. Bye bye.